All right, what's going on?
Playing Wild Arms.
You are playing Wild Arms, and it's fantastic. You
It
fighting the
is.
Durkins. It's got
What?
4 eyes too. What the fuck?
And I know. Yeah, these monster designs are so good.
So earlier today, I was talking with a friend of mine who is pretty much locked to console, and he brought up a really interesting. Um, I don't know how I would describe it, like, but argument against death of a console, right? And he said
Right.
that one of the saddest things about owning so many consoles is nothing ever new comes out for it. It would be amazing if indie game developers and things like that could really get their games put onto these retro consoles easily, not without hassle, not limited production, but like get them to shelves. Because there's no reason why the PS1 is dead. There's no reason why the PS2 is dead. In argument, a lot of these consoles have been perfected, so developers could master the system at this point and make amazing games dedicated to those platforms. Thoughts?
I've spent a lot of time around the internet lately, and I don't know if anybody else has been there. It's a pretty wild place. There are tons of tiny independent websites making brand new old
It's
games.
super cool. It's super
I
cool. Check it out for sure.
on my own website have links to some development tools for older things. Like
Hmm.
you can find uh, complete Mega Drive development documents, Commodore 64 development documents, links to a few different things like that. Because like, who wants to let good hardware die? If it's still functional, then why is it? Why are we so quick to just get rid of it?
Right, I agree. I think it would be super cool to have, let's just say Sega, just be like, here we're selling um this Dreamcast disc. It allows it to access modern internet over this interface. It comes with this kit, and like you have a digital store. It comes with like a serial port adapter that you can put a SD card in, right?
Right.
And it then like everybody already knows that it can be done. Like we already
Like,
know that that's a possibility
yeah,
because
flashcard style.
that's how flashcards work, and that's how the Dreamcast ultimately was bypassed. Was a disc and a serial port connection.
I hacked my Wii when I was 11. I hacked my Wii with the letter bomb method, and that's just pop an SD card into your Wii.
Right, and then just load it up. Every console I own is hacked, right? I've talked about this in the past. I've always hacked my consoles since I was little. I love to tinker, and a lot of people use this conversation about piracy and things like that. So there
But
comes
like,
a question. Let's turn the table and say, and let's say all these game developers can put games out on these older consoles and have it so easily available, like pressing everything easily available to them, cheap even. At what point would you just get massive shovelware again?
when you have a Wii, when you hit the Wii, when you've done so much that you accumulate the resources to release the Wii, the most hackable console everywhere of all time, and people just dump whatever the fuck they want onto it. The Nintendo's Switch, now with the advent of everybody can publish whatever the hell they want on Switch.
I don't think the argument really outweighs the pros. I still think like if what? Go ahead.
I've been working on my ridiculous play every game ever thing lately,
Right.
and according to my calculation, there are well over 200,000 games in existence. We
Oh
don't
yeah.
need more shovelware.
Oh no, absolutely not. I mean, at what point are we gonna have to go through that library as a community and just be like, all of these are completely negligible? Like, just ignore their existence. But then YouTubers just cover them constantly. Like, I remember fucking Gingerbread Knight or whatever, and it was just a clone of another game, which was a
Ninja
clone of another
Bread
game. Ninja Bread
Man.
Man. I don't give a fuck.
Ninja Bread Man,
But what?
bro.
But you go on YouTube and your favorite YouTuber probably made a video on it.
Yeah, and that's terrible because like games like that don't deserve the don't deserve the crazy Ride to Hell Retribution is tons of my life I'll never get back. Any few minutes of that game is a lot of life wasted.
I realize that the people watching can see my screen, and I'm just looking at your Euphoria, your Behringer Euphoria.
Oh, it's a beautiful device, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why I'm streaming that. Oh, so yeah, I don't know. Like, name a game that recently came out, and you would absolutely dust off the PS2 and buy it for it.
Um, if they re-release Dual Hearts, if they just like randomly started making copies of games like Dual Hearts and Persona 3, or like if you could just go buy a random ass brand new copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 off of the shelf, I would be all over that. I would buy a PS2. Straight up in 2023, I would buy a PS2 for an original copy of Kingdom Hearts 3
It's funny that you say that because Square
or Kingdom Hearts 2.
recently, yeah, Square recently had actually attempted this. Actually, I can pull it up, can I? Square Enix. I know because I bought Final Fantasy 6. I have Final Fantasy 6 PS1, but they're Square Enix versions, and there's discs have a silver bottom.
Right?
I have them in. They're still wrapped because they're special to me. Um, I don't know. It didn't make as much noise as I thought it would have. Yeah, here's a Reddit on it. Square Enix store having a sale on sealed PS1 games, 4.49 each. So, from what I understand, they released the greatest hits versions of a lot of games again, and they like repressed them. And a lot of people thought they were backstock that they like finally repossessed or recollected on, and they got them all back, and now they were selling them onto their website. But turned out they were all represses. They were brand new games for these old consoles.
When I was doing the research looking into games for the Atari 2600 games video, I stumbled across a category of Atari 2600 games that were developed from 1999 to 2001, and I just was flabbergasted that games were coming out for it so late because there's like between 2001 between 1979 and 2001 there was just almost a constant stream of development for video games for that thing.
Oh, they are doing it again. Um, Square Enix official website has for sale Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Ring of Fates for the DS. Um,
I've only ever played the first Crystal Chronicles, and you know what? Great game. I've heard bad things about the remake.
dude, they only have Lord of Arcana on here for the PSP. I mean, somebody's got to buy it and find out. You know what I mean? That's what needs to be done. Is people need to buy it off of here, and that's what happened with the PS1 games. That's what I did. Um, and as you guys can see, if I go to PS2, there is no PS1. You can get Kingdom Hearts 2, Final Fantasy X, X2, and 8. Is that 8?
IX.
XII.
Oh,
12?
that's 12.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Great
10,
game, by
12.
the way.
Yeah, 12 is good. But you can buy Kingdom Hearts 2 right now, Red. $20, brand new.
I have I have Kingdom Hearts 2.
I
I
already
have
have
many
it too.
copies of Kingdom Hearts 2. The point is, I want a new copy of Kingdom Hearts 2 that I
Oh,
went to a store and I bought off of a shelf.
like if they did like Kingdom Hearts 2 Redux and it's like this special 2023 edition where
Like,
they go through and refine the fuck out of it.
just release Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix with a bunch of bug fixes for the PlayStation 2. And I would buy a brand new PlayStation 2 for that. Sony should consider that. And it's not just me. I know plenty of other people
Oh
would be
yeah,
willing to buy a
absolutely.
brand new PlayStation 2 in the modern age. I know they ended manufacturing in 2011. It's not like they couldn't just make more of
It's
them,
not like
though.
the company doesn't exist. Sony, you still
Right.
exist as a company. Um,
Literally making PlayStations still. If
and
they wanted to, they could just make some PlayStation 2s.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Could make stronger
I'm
PlayStation
sure
2s.
if somebody really, because we were just talking about PCB Way, right? I'm sure
Right.
somebody can just use PCB Way. Like they're good enough to just clone the PS2 motherboard perfectly and get them distributed. Like
But could
it's
you
just a
imagine
clone.
could you imagine if Sony released a fucking 1080p PlayStation 2 in the modern age that upscaled games natively of its own accord, rendered textures with forced trilinear, just a lot of really good quality of life enhancements in a brand new, higher powered PlayStation 2 with a Ryzen or something.
You know what I think it comes down to for me is backwards compatibility and the loss of it. I think that's where it all started with me.
And backwards compatibility is great.
It is.
But like,
I would
what
still
if you
argue
only
essential.
because of how long the PlayStation 2 ran, what if you only ever bought a PlayStation 2 and you still got like a shit ton of those games, but you don't have a console anymore, right? Sony knows there's a lot of market out there like that. So like on the cheap manufacturing PlayStation 2s with I don't know, maybe pull a bunch of Ryzen uh 5100s or something. I don't they're fucking those are cheap.
Or just
There's a lot that could be done there.
say like a 3100U or something that could just run like a hypervisor that just
Right.
SoCs PS2 on a chip, essentially emulating a PS2, but you can buy brand new games that run on it.
If Atari can release a console in the modern age,
That's the one.
Sony can re-release the PlayStation 2.
Okay, but Hyperkin does that, right? Hyperkin has a bunch of those.
The Retron is badass, but it's also third party. So,
Does that
like,
is that relevant in today's day and age, would you say?
it depends.
Like if I go to Hyperkin and I go to N60, okay, it's just controllers. They don't have a console.
I think the Retron 5 could play like Genesis, Super Nintendo, original Nintendo, Master System, and
Right.
one more, and I don't remember what it was.
I just don't understand. There's so many of these companies that make like these emulation boxes, right? And they just sell them everywhere. They throw them all in different shells, blah blah blah, right? And a lot of them are really cool. In fact, I think there's like a whole YouTuber who like buys all of them. And like that's his whole channel. Uh, and there's some pretty cool ones in there, but nothing is like just a computer. I don't understand why isn't there just like an OS that runs all these emulators that it preloads and then it does a internet check for like a call to address for an update? And then it's just all the emulators and you just load them onto a fucking secondary hard drive or something and it just scans it every time you reset it.
Yeah, it would be great. And with RetroArch, like, it's not entirely impossible.
Yeah, because doesn't it? Can't you just branch it directly into Linux?
Yeah,
You could just grub load right into it.
yeah,
Huh. I don't know. I just feel like there's always been this like I guess it's probably ignorance on my part, but untapped market. I mean, you gonna win this race or what?
man, I did it.
You're flying that game too, dude. Like I love this game as an example of what we're talking about because this game is extremely polished for what it is.
And it got a full remake.
Man, you remember the Bloodborne demake, like the PS1 Bloodborne demake that was made?
Yeah.
Like how fucking cool would it have been for like I don't know, what if Squaresoft was just like, here's a couple guys from our department, here's some money, sign these contracts, we're gonna work with you to make this into something, and then just was like literally dropped Bloodborne on PS1. Would have been dope. Like what a
Man,
marketing move.
not only what a marketing move, but also imagine the amount of people who would dig out their PS1s for the first time in maybe 20 years
I just bought a
just to play
PS1.
Bloodborne.
I just bought a PS1 and a copy of Silent Hill. Dude,
Silent Hole.
dude, it set me back. That video on the Zephyr channel that only got 27 fucking views, um, cost me about $900 to make. And I had to buy the CRT. You know how much it costs just to ship a CRT?
A lot. Because it's fucking heavy.
You know how much it is to fix a CRT?
Even more because it's cathode ray tubes.
Yeah, that's what I had to do. Yeah. And that was just so I could make a video comparing Silent Hill emulated versus PS1. I had a playthrough of Silent Hill on my channel. People know that I like the game. People know I'm good at the game. Uh, I mocked a pacifist run in Silent Hill, right? And playing it on the PS1, what I didn't really discuss was, I guess I did discuss it, but not in enough detail, how outdated it felt when I played it against an emulator.
Man. But that's just Silent Hill. It is
It is
very
very
outdated.
outdated. This is true. I mean, it's a great game, though. You got really far in it, going in pretty much blind your first time.
It was better than Silent Hill 3.
Oh my god, going
I
blind
I
into
couldn't do
Silent
that.
Hill
I
3,
I
yeah.
beat I beat that once. I couldn't do that a second time.
Do you think who owned was it Konami? Konami owned
Yeah.
Silent Hill? Yeah. Do you think Konami, like if we normalized the idea of releasing new games for these older consoles and even I don't know, maybe dabbling in like devices that play multiple games that could be modern releases with like really nice screens and stuff. You could have like a modern retro uh aesthetic. I don't know. I just think there's money there.
There is money there. It's not up to us to know where the money is, though. It's up to the companies that make the shit, sell the shit. It's up to the business, you know? Like we can find the money forever, but unless they capitalize on it, there's nothing that we can do about it.
And yeah, because you gotta have a lot of capital. Like you're gonna have to advertise it and like have content creators who, you know, are businesses first. We all know they exist. Um, they gotta get paid to make content on it. You gotta get a big name talking about it at the very least. Like Lannis Tech Tips has gotta at least talk about it. And they've shown a lot of interest in retro consoles. They've made videos on how to convert them to USB Type C to run off of a phone charger to reduce their power consumption. They've shown how to mod them. And that's all Linus Tech Tips. Like, that is the biggest tech channel, if I'm not mistaken, on the internet.
Yeah. You got Steve Burke doing his thing, which is just so incredible. Like the amount of effort he's put into the science of consumer purchasing.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened with Activision, right? That's like its origin story.
That Activision's origin story was Atari sucked. They wouldn't give us a license, so we made our own carts. No, wait, that was EA.
Oh, was that EA?
Yeah, that was
Electronic
EA on the
Arts?
Genesis.
That was pretty
Sega wouldn't.
fucking anarchy of them, huh?
Yeah,
That was
Sega wouldn't
bold.
license them the cartridge design, so they just fucking designed their own.
Man.
Sega was like, man, I can't believe this. The disrespect.
And like I understand the idea of like this quality control that these companies like lofty themselves on, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I'm a PC user. Like, I don't really give a fuck what's going on in the console scene ever. There's no reason for me to because I'm a PC user.
Man, that's too elitist for me. I just like to play video games.
Yeah, but that's always been your take.
Like it's never really mattered what it's on, right? Because
No, I
as long
agree.
as it's playable, I've just always been like, I just like to play video
Yeah.
games. I spent a long time figuring out how to run games on an i3 530 with its original graphics intact and no graphics card. And that's a fun experience. You've never really had to struggle to play games until you've done that.
What it was you who said when I asked if what would you do if your like brand new computer broke? And I think your exact words were, I don't know, buy an Xbox and hack it.
It's pretty
And
much
I
the
was
only
like,
thing
that
to
is
do.
so
Like
fucking drastically far from what I was expecting.
you can just like with the advent of the file explorer, you can just turn a Series S into a PC, run emulators and play any game you want. And it watches everything. The only thing it doesn't do is edit video, and it even kind of does that a little.
Do you think the answer is just being like all these companies need to like work it out and
Yeah, I
end their own
well,
elitism?
the problem
Is
isn't
it
that every
trickle down
company is elitist.
elitism? Trickle down elitism.
The problem isn't that every company is elitist. The problem is that specifically Sony and Nintendo can't stop their pissing match.
True. Don't they realize that they're in completely different demographics? Like I would argue in the majority.
Nintendo is a toy maker that makes toys, and Sony is a TV company. What the fuck do
No, they're
either
a
of them
camera
have to do with
company.
you know, it's amazing that Microsoft is in third place for video games because what the fuck did Sony and Nintendo have to do with video games? Microsoft at least is a computer company. Nintendo made video games after they made the light gun for the Magnavox Odyssey. Big whoop. I know I shit on Nintendo a lot, right? And that's not me being like, because Nintendo's not bad. They just have never done anything inherently good.
They're just Disney of video games. That's what I always just equate
That
it
is
to.
literally what it is.
Like they're just the Disney of video games. Like if you're into Nintendo, whatever, you're probably a Disney kid.
I like some Nintendo games. Like I like my fair share of Legend of Zelda games. I don't like Breath of the Wild very much, but I recognize that it's a good game.
Mhm.
People enjoy it.
There's not a lot of Nintendo games I'm super interested in. It's like only Zelda.
I asked myself again though when I went back and I played Gunstar Heroes and I played Phantasy Star because those games technically are so superior to everything Nintendo had going on. I had to ask myself again, how the fuck did Nintendo get to be so popular?
Man, I don't know. Weren't they already like crazy wealthy?
They kind of stole the market. If you do the research, they literally like because of how their regulations in Japan worked and how many of our video game developers here were coming from Japan, there wasn't much we could do about like what we did and didn't get from Sega.
Right. Yeah, because now we have like Nintendo of America, Sony of America, Microsoft of Japan. Like that's all a thing, right?
Right. And that
Does that kind of impedes? No, does it impede like if they just allow full access to the code and just allow people to make games for consoles? I mean, we know that's a thing that already exists, but not on a large scale.
I brought it up in my 5 Master System games video. At one point, if Nintendo told you they didn't want you to make a game for any console except for theirs, they meant it.
Yeah. Now that's just Microsoft. Microsoft's buying every studio under the sun.
Microsoft is buying everyone, trying to keep everybody else from becoming anti-competitive as shit.
Yeah.
You know, they bought Bethesda, so Starfield wouldn't become a PlayStation exclusive. They
Thank
bought
you.
Activision. Well, it wasn't okay, so they also bought Bethesda because Todd Howard cried to Phil Spencer and really needed a buddy. But but
Do you have evidence of this?
no, but I imagine it went something along the lines of, "Man, Philly, I need some help, my guy. We're digging into a hole. Our plastic Nuka vodka bottles are getting us dug in."
Have you seen their studio?
No,
Dude, it's fucking crazy.
treated right under the iron thumb of Microsoft.
No. I'm talking about their old studio.
Oh, is
Dude.
it destroyed? Is it broken?
No, 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 no. So they would have like giant casts of their characters made, and then they would just paint them white and just stick them in places. So like when you go to the Bethesda studio, there's just these giant statues of like Fallout super soldiers and shit everywhere.
Who
Wild.
wants to come to work and see that?
Oh my god, dude. And everything's white. It was wild. You gotta look it up. Bethesda Studio. Pretty awesome. Not gonna lie, pretty awesome. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You
But
think it's a
hey,
DRM thing?
not releasing old games?
Yeah.
No, because like if it was, why? How would we even have functional emulators?
True.
Like if you can unlock the DRM that was already in place, you can put new DRM on it. Look at the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. They're all like they're not all the Nintendo ports of things to other consoles, but they're most of them are like ports from somewhere else with a couple of minor changes specific to the PC.
Hmm. What about mobile games? Do you think mobile games?
I think mobile games are shit, not games.
I'm talking about like modern mobile games. You know how you can play like GTA and stuff on your phone. You can play Pokemon trading card game,
Right.
Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm talking
You
about the
know
stuff
what?
that's actually got like brand recognition behind it.
You know what I was playing on my mobile back when I was in high school? This. This is what I was doing on my cell phone.
Yeah, about the same. About the same. I bought a my first ever big purchase in life was a Sony L1 smartphone thing. I still have it to this day, dude. That thing's a tank. I think it'll run PS1 games at like 22 FPS. If you play the right
I
games, you could play PS2 games.
Man, I remember rooting my Kindle Fire HDX to use on live.
Oh my god.
I say that sentence out loud and can't believe how fucking crazy it must sound
Dude.
to somebody else. They're like, I imagine I right there, I would get a bunch of what the fuck are any of those things? What is on live? What is a Kindle Fire?
Dude, do you remember when Google Stadia had an exclusive that came out?
What the fuck is a Stadia?
Right, first off. Second off, there's, like, no footage of it anywhere.
It's how do you catch footage? It's all cloud. It was a controller. Google was selling a controller
Well, it
that
had an
was connected
HDMI
to their
in.
PC.
You had a Chrome. Everybody you had a
Listen,
Chrome.
listen,
Like a Kindle
just
Fire.
s-
Or not a Kindle Fire,
I would
fuck,
swear to
Fire
God,
Stick.
swear to God, my Kindle Fire was so much more advanced.
Yeah, I mean, the Google Stadia servers and everything like that was super impressive. I don't know if you saw those.
It's just like that ran like ass. They did not have good network.
They had great network in Texas. That's it. Everywhere else just got like the prototype, and they're like, maybe one day. Never mind.
And then Stadia died.
Yeah, but there was a game that was exclusive to it, and
The
now.
Ouya lived longer than the Stadia.
Listen. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. There's an exclusive game for the for what was the Stadia that is now just lost to the annals of time. We have very little information to my knowledge. I'm sure at this point somebody's uncovered it, but I don't know if it'll ever be playable.
Immortals Phoenix Rising.
No, that made it to disc. Thank God.
That was I don't even remember what that game was. I just remember like
So,
hating looking at it because I kept hearing about it.
I hate explaining inside jokes sometimes, but this one's solid. This one's not one that people are going to know. Immortals Phoenix Rising was Google Stadia's bait game. And when you talk about a bait game, that's when a company is like emailing content creators, "Hey, play my game." I got one of those emails and I don't know how. And ever since then, Red has made fun of me because I played Immortal Phoenix Rising on Google
Im-
Stadia and it didn't
like,
work.
yeah, they sent you the game to try out. It literally didn't work.
I was pretty hyped because I was gonna do it and I was gonna make fun of it.
But then in the end, it doesn't even matter. You tried so hard and you got so far.
The game didn't work. Did it?
Fucking I've
So
never seen
funny.
I've never seen footage of that game. I have no idea what the game's about. I don't want to know what that game's about. I'll get to it eventually in the future, but I've got 100,000 other games to play first.
There's so many games.
There are so many games. There like and I'm realizing it now more than before that there are so many games.
I think that's why that if the collective companies started to support previous consoles again, and even at anniversaries have special edition pre-orders for the original Xbox, even though it's not the original Xbox, it could be an SoC. I still think that is what gaming could look like one day, is just companies supporting their shit.
Wow, imagine if a dev supported their Gundam Evolution shut down. It hasn't even been a
What?
year. Gundam Evolution shut down.
No way.
Yeah. I spent money on the first battle pass, never played the game, waited and fucking waited some more to hear any positive news that they had fixed any of the balancing, that anything good was coming out of it. And the only update that I heard after months of waiting was we are ending support for Gundam Evolution. And
Damn, in
man,
November.
I didn't even play it for 4 hours. You know when I feel I
You know
spent
what, though?
$10.
I think this is why more developers need to take these systems that they're making and consider single player experiences.
It was all for the money. It was to grab
Oh, I
cash. It was to milk
know.
fans and run. 100%. It was to milk fans and run. And that's the sad reality of a lot of games we have now. That are milk fans and run. Overwatch 1, totally successful. Could have lived on for years and years. Give it a
Like Team
graphics patch. And you
Fortress.
know what? It could be awesome. And you know what? Instead of Overwatch 1 continuing and keeping longevity, they made Overwatch 2, which was just Overwatch 1, but worse.
Dude, you know what I think we have to do? I think
We
we
have
need to
to
play Resident Evil Outbreak.
I think we have to play Cooking Mama, the one that mines cryptocurrency.
That's a whole nother conversation, ain't it?
Yeah,
IP sharing and shit is dangerous. Like Arcane Studios, they have completely lost their reputation with me. Everybody from Arcane is gone. Why would I even consider them Arcane? Redfall
it's
fucked that company.
that's hard because like Redfall had the potential to be good.
Still does.
It just probably won't get the support. You know what I fucking hate
Yeah, but
is okay,
the
when we
talent,
finally
bro.
when we finally do get like the much deserved support from the other side, it
Right.
comes with a paywall. Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty bothers the hell out of me because it's a bunch of things that were promised with the original game coming in the form of a DLC that is almost the full price of the original game. How do you justify that? How do you justify paying a second time for things you were promised the first time? Like, and so many people have hopped on Phantom Liberty like it's an amazing decision, but I can't look at it like anything other than financial irresponsibility. I won't even touch it. I can't. I won't buy it because I just can't. There's no part of me that looks at that and goes, "Yeah, that's worth it."
Because that's not Kojima. It might, is it anything to do with Kojima's crew? Anything? Phantom Liberty? That's the new
That's
Metal
that's
Gear
no
Solid.
Phantom Liberty is Cyberpunk.
Oh.
I'm talking about Cyberpunk 2077.
What's the
Phantom
new
Liberty,
what's the new Metal Gear Solid?
uh, it's 3 remake, Delta Snake Eater.
Oh yeah, I'm excited for that one. Because it's just a remake. But if they were to make like a new one, I'd be like, no, fuck no.
I don't, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty bothers the fuck out of me because it's a bunch of promises that were made when the game released the first time. And fans of Cyberpunk are just so willing to spend
Yep.
$50 on the shit that they were promised the first time and didn't get. Like burn
Yep.
me once, shame on me. But I'll be avoiding that second burn, right? Because in this case, I would rather take the shame and just not subject myself to a second scam.
Yeah. From what I hear, like the wall running and stuff isn't even there.
It's still not even the things that were promised the first time around. It's some of the things with a bunch of other shit that's totally unrelated.
Yeah, doesn't it like spin off into a whole different story at some points?
Yep.
Like completely
It's
feel unfinished?
straight up changes it into a whole different thing that just is, and it's
Oh, it
like, and a
changes
lot
the
of it
whole
is just
story?
doesn't change the whole story, but it changes a lot of the story. It's Cyberpunk the reboot.
Shit.
It's Cyberpunk, the opportunity to play a reboot for 40 extra
Okay.
dollars. That they're overcharging for Cyberpunk so fucking much, and the public is stupidly following Phantom Liberty like it's going to be amazing, as if they didn't learn anything the first time.
Do you think CD Projekt Red has credibility anymore?
No, no, not even a little bit.
That's how I feel. Really don't trust them.
They
I'm
said
afraid
they
that they
wouldn't.
could go the Activision route and it's just going to be trash over and over
They said
again.
they wouldn't crunch their developers, and that was exactly what they did. They said they wouldn't sell games with DRM, and that is exactly what they did.
Yeah. I mean, isn't putting a video game on a console inherently giving it DRM?
But GOG, the website,
Right.
sold Hitman 3 with its DRM intact.
Yeah, I have it. I actually
Uh,
own that one.
how the fuck, after saying forever that the reason their site was good was because there was no DRM in the games they were selling, it was about freedom, sold DRM with Hitman 3.
What's what sucks is I believed in GOG. I was one of the fools who fell for their guys because I don't like DRM. I don't like the fact that companies shut down emulators. I Don't like any of that shit. Uh, I'm all about everybody should have access to video games. They should be supported or at least available at in 20 fucking 23. These games should be available to play elsewhere.
And like
And I loved GOG for that. And they burned me so hard.
20 years later, why should a publisher that hasn't published or sold a title be allowed to just suddenly pull it out of the annals of abandonware after it being freeware and shareware for so long? To sell it for a price and then shit on everybody who was playing it as abandonware before. Like GOG existed for the sole purpose of giving publishers a place to sell their old games.
Right.
Games that they had already sold, that the original developers weren't going to make money off of anymore, that
Yeah,
they weren't even inherently going to make money off of anymore, but anything to squeeze out a penny, right?
right. I guess it's definitely a double-edged blade.
That's why I am on a quest to play as many games as I possibly can. Just
I've entered that
because,
journey, bro. I
like,
100% understand.
at some point, I'm just not going to be able to.
I've played
So somebody
every
somewhere, some company is going to fuck over everything.
yeah, I've played every now for the audience. I'm what 8 years older than you, 9 years older than
Yeah.
you, something like that. Like I'm old. I'm an old guy. Um, I've played my entire childhood. Like I did the exact same thing. Like I went and I played every single game that like ever caught my eye in my childhood because of emulation and stuff. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I
I
got to
was
experience
broke.
every story.
I was broke. So aside from the hand-me-down consoles that were mostly ripped apart that I got from my brothers
Hmm.
and the shit that my dad played, which was his super old stuff that he enjoyed,
Right.
video games were like my mom wasn't too keen on buying video games. And when she was, it usually wasn't for me.
Okay.
So like
I understand.
emulators
I understand. Like that's
emulators
rough.
like they built the video game scene for me. You know what I mean? I
That's
had a
dope.
lot of video games, but emulators were like the reason I got to experience so many. Other than like the older things I grew up with, I got to experience other things that I just never would have known about otherwise. Translations were a big one.
Oh yeah, translations are huge. I know a lot of people who play Japanese games translated. I actually mentioned it earlier to Derek. I fully advocate for people to buy Japanese or European versions of games and have them imported for their artwork and just emulate them because you now own the game.
Did Evergrace way back, and I loved that game so much I bought a Japanese import of it.
Right. I just think they're so much cheaper. Like Japan definitely has a longer life cycle for a lot of their consoles. They typically continue to get third-party support. Ubisoft has taken advantage of this and has released, I think, for up until like 2020, I think, Just Dance for the Wii.
My God.
Yeah. So a lot of like small indie developers in Japan, like there is a scene in Japan where that exists. I don't know how large it is, how much of it is just bootlegging. Obviously, I don't live there.
But like
It
the
exists.
a lot of things happen that the Nintendo DS probably still gets its occasional share of shovelware in Japan.
Oh, it's very possible, yeah. Like these just boards left over that just get flashed with something and slap a
Right.
label on it and sell it at the fair.
Somebody in Japan confirmed that. Are there new DS releases in Japan?
I have no information on that. I have no idea. I don't know if they would be Nintendo official. I wouldn't be
Probably not.
surprised because there's a huge market. They probably moved on to like the 3DS and stuff, but um, like dating sims,
There are
bringing your
like
girlfriend with you and things like that in your pocket are very popular there. I'm sure that's
wasn't the
very
DS
underground.
Lite wasn't the DS Lite over manufactured though?
I think so,
Like
but it sold
severely
really
over
well.
manufactured.
Yeah, it sold well, but it was severely over manufactured. Yeah, but I think it was really easy to manufacture too.
Yeah. 'Cause it was a lot of the Game Boy stuff. Like they were
Yeah,
just keeping with a lot of Game Boy hardware and kind of the only things that were really different were like processor, chipset,
dude, you wanna know what
firmware.
really fucking pisses me off? So when I was a kid, I thought the fact that the DS had two screens was fucking nuts. And then I grew up and I learned about electrical engineering and realized those motherfuckers were just doing resolutions across two screens just using a very simple circuit. I was like, God damn it. I was bamboozled.
Man, they got him. They tricked him into thinking it was more than it was.
Oh man, I was mad. They were like talking about how, they gotta design the game in this certain fucking way. And I'm like, no, you didn't! It's all the same fucking screen. It's just chopped off
That's why
artificially.
that's why a game like Hotel Dusk is so impressive to me because a lot of the art that scrolls between screens is designed and animated in such a way that like there was this big empty gap between the screen from the developer's point of view the entire time.
Awesome.
The space where the bar would have been.
It's just, it's so interesting how, like, when I think on SOCs in particular and how close their emulation is to being perfect these days, and how like ROMs are being modified and updated to this day by fans to remove bugs and stuff, that these companies never thought, hey, maybe that's a good idea.
Mentioned earlier that I thought a Wild Arms randomizer would be good, and that
Right.
brings up the whole idea of randomizers are such a fresh, unique way to handle retro video games. Watching any Legend of Zelda randomizer playthrough is just so much fun.
Right. And if these games were to be modern released, right? We have the technology to make absolutely massive worlds in something like an N64 right now, because we have the knowledge now to make these accelerators and things like that.
A couple of dudes can do it. Imagine the crazy shit Nintendo could do if they made their own Link
Exactly.
to the Past randomizer.
And like if you have an original PS2 or PS2 or I'm sorry, if you have an original N64, these accelerator cards can be bought separately to upgrade them for these new games that are coming out, and you could have, you know, uh Mother 4 finally come out, or what was it, Mother 64? Mother 64 finally come out.
That was that became Mother 3.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, like the
Yeah,
original graphic structure in a big game.
right.
And you could have that authentic N64 feel, but with a whole new arsenal. Let it
That's
be. Let it be an arsenal.
Square. As much as I don't like Square, and I've taken shots at Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy 3 3D remake is sweet.
Yeah. I just think sometimes Square just kind of does whatever the Square wants. Like I just feel like they have
Man,
like this shield around them, and they're just like impenetrable. Like,
Square gave Squall hair extensions and named him Leon.
okay. I don't know. I just think like if, because I know like the Fat PS2 for instance, right? You have um the HDD adapter, so you can use a memory card that runs FreeMic boot. You could load games off of your SSD in a PS2, and that's the kind of like quote unquote future proofing that like I enjoy to see. But we also know that the PS2 is fully network capable, and I understand the technology inside the PS2 is out of date, but Sony has all that information, and with modern technology, it's completely reasonable to restore servers and it be extremely cheap.
Like the few instances we've had where companies have re-released consoles and shit, they haven't been good. The PlayStation Classic would have been an awesome opportunity to just release the PlayStation 1 Slim again,
Right, with
but
like
with a hard drive.
a hard drive or an SD card under like near the lens, so you can load
Right.
a disc or put an SD card in.
No,
Perfect.
instead it was the cheapest fucking plastic they could make it with. Instead of like releasing a good PlayStation 1, but instead of just releasing the PlayStation 1.
Right. Like the PS1, literal PS1.
Yeah, instead of just doing that, they commissioned a hunk of plastic that was almost unrelated.
Yeah.
Like, and that was a huge missed opportunity. The Super Nintendo Classic,
Do you think
same
it's like
thing.
fear?
Yes,
Because it would
I don't.
be
Not only that, no, I don't think it's fear. I think it's. I straight up think it's just stinginess. I think there's a level of cheapness to the executive decision making process, and it's not about the consumer or making the consumer happy. Because video games, for some reason, of every market, video games is the one market that thinks it doesn't have to make the consumer happy.
yeah. Uh I was chit chatting with my buddy and he had mentioned the PlayStation 3 and he brought up a good point how the very first model of the PlayStation 3 was backwards compatible all the way to the PS1. Um so for those who don't know, the very first fat PS3 had a secondary graphics chip that was essentially the PS2 graphics chip. So it would perfectly not SoC, but like perfectly on system run a PS2. So you could run a PS2 game. And later iterations, they took that away. I think nowadays, and I agreed with his take, is the perfect time to have a PlayStation 3 drop that's like perfect. No bugs. Every game runs fantastic. You update the shit
Like,
out of those games.
and it
People
wouldn't
are
be hard.
clamoring for PS3 games if you didn't know.
I mean, you can, as a big company, right? I hope somebody at Nintendo somewhere hears this. As a big company, you can spend money forever taking shit down, or you can spend money one time to fix the fucking problem yourself.
Facts. You gotta be the ones that set the precedent. Somebody's gotta set the precedent, you know?
If it's not going to be Nintendo, Sony's got to do it. If it's not going to be Sony, Microsoft couldn't release the original Xbox again, but they don't have to because it's backwards compatible with all of them. They're the only company that actually stuck to it.
Yeah. I mean, they lost some along the way, but that I mean, they updated the emulators that they use, and
The
they
fact
got
that
there
you can play
eventually.
a four-player LAN game of Halo 2 between four
Yep.
generations of Xbox is remarkable.
It's awesome. Well, from what I understand, and I'm not a networker, uh, it's not that hard to do if you know what to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, you just need to know how to make them communicate, and apparently it's not that hard.
Nintendo could fix so many of their problems by spending almost no money to just give the people what they want. So they wouldn't have to spend tons of money on legal teams
Oh,
to
dude,
take everybody's shit down all the time.
do you remember when you don't have a modded Xbox, right?
No.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so here's a story for everybody. The Xbox, there's a hack for it. It's Flash. You have to flash the BIOS in it, and you can upgrade your hard drive and whatever, blah blah blah. But there was like this network service, and you had to connect to specific IPs, but you could play like Halo 2 off your Xbox with other people, etc., etc. Um, from what I understand, you the original Xbox, if we could just somehow get past like one of the hypervisors on like a daughter board or something, you could just run Windows on it.
Unsurprising, it's a Windows, it's a Microsoft machine. It's got DirectX capability. I should be able to run Windows.
But that begs
You
the
know,
question, why do we take all this time to like soft mod shit? I understand we need the code in order to emulate it, but
a
I
lot of,
just mm,
here's something funny is that a
DRM.
lot of the time
It's DRM.
A lot of the time, something written .NET for Windows can just also be compiled as a .UWP, a Universal Windows Program, and the Xbox One, Xbox Series, they run Windows 8 as their backend. Microsoft operating system is a facade. It's just a navigation screen on over the top of a Windows 8 kernel
Yeah,
that executes UWPs.
it's like a
So like
hypervisor essentially, right?
yeah, well, no, it's not even that, it's literally just a facade, it's
Oh,
literally
really?
just like a skin,
Oh,
it's just a cover for
I thought it
what it
was a
actually
little
is
bit
doing.
more. I thought it was at
No,
least like a virtual machine or something.
no, it's not too complicated, so, like,
Would have
games
been
all
safer.
execute it is its own operating system, right? It's
Yeah,
not just like
yeah.
a copy and paste flat image, but when the second you load any app or any game, Windows 8 running in the background is called and is immediately the thing running that. So,
Mhm.
like, all the Xbox operating system does is navigate Windows 8.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
it's not
I think Steam is the company to point at right now and be like, "You're the one. Like, you're the chosen one." Release, like, a fucking Steam machine that's, like, guilty overpowered and do the exact same thing you did with Steam Deck and put that skin on it and market the fuck of it at console consumers.
they were willing to take the risk of putting together the Steam Deck, a Nintendo Switch looking derivative that very easily could have led to quick a lawsuit, but for some reason Dolphin is crossing the line.
Right. But I think the Steam Deck is unique enough. I mean, I use my Steam Deck a lot. I love my Steam Deck. Um, right behind me actually. I have it on my workbench right now. Um, it's a fantastic little device that I highly recommend. I have sung its praises a billion times, but that thing, dude, that thing is an emulation monster. It runs PS3 games, bro. I was playing Red Dead Redemption on it.
You
That's
know how many
nuts.
kids would be a lot smarter if Nintendo would just let them mod their consoles.
Oh, facts. For sure. Like they like talk about educational games. They talk about these fucking toys that are made out of cardboard boxes. This is years old now.
Man, modding a Wii is a critical problem-solving skill. You go into it knowing that you just plug in your SD card and start the letter bomb, but then there's the issue of installing CIOS in the homebrew channel and making sure that everything's
Yep.
running properly so you can get things like USB GX loader running and stuff. And there's just a lot of stuff that like,
Goes into
that's
it.
it's a problem. It's a problem that you get to solve. And as a kid, that helps you develop your
Dude.
problem-solving skills.
I had the sickest fucking Wii. Did you mod your Wii?
I did.
Oh, let's go. So I had a CPU exhaust fan. I had the RGB wire for the front light, so it would strobe through all the LEDs that you have to like wire in, which it just came as a kit. Like you plug the old one out and you plug this new one in. I had the black case, and then I had a 500 gigabyte SSD that was USB'd into the USB for USB GX. Dude, that thing fucking slapped. Guitar Hero on that thing. Mwah!
Man, I,
Oh,
for the longest time, didn't even fuck with my Wii, but then one day, I had a wild hair at my ass, popped it open. Was looking at taking a good look at the components and thought to myself, man, this is like this is like just playing with Legos. If I wanted to change any component in this, I probably could just pluck one out and pick something I have laying around and plug it in. And so I got to fucking around with HDMI ports that I had laying around,
mhm.
replaced my composite out, and that went
That's dope.
terribly. It went terribly until I stumbled on an Xbox 360 from way fucking long before and found a way to soft wire this Xbox 360's HDMI input. So I had HDMI output in my Wii. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. It was just composite video signal running through the analog traces in the HDMI cable, but it was functional. And to me, for me, being able to solve that problem at all was interesting. Getting any video signal to come out of it was a cool thing.
This is why I want a 3D printer.
You are a 3D printer.
Well, think about it. Like, you saw my video for the Optiplex 42069. It was a comedy video on my Zephyr channel. You didn't see it.
Man, you cut a fucking hole in the side of an Optiplex. Is that's like watching WikiLeaks to me. Like that's it's like, man, that computer was just so mutilated. No, I saw it.
It's got the big fucking radiator on it, whatnot.
Man,
I would just love. I love the fact that society is moving towards like 3D printing and stuff like that, and PCBWay existing and things like that. This probably sounds like an advertisement for PCBWay, but I like PCBWay. Use them a lot. Um, if I had a 3D printer, I could just 3D print my keyboard whole thing, and then just like, here's everything I need to buy off of Amazon, and it's like the little pins and shit, so I can put the stands on and the spring, blah blah blah. And then I could just get my PCB from PCBWay that's completely custom.
if I had a 3D printer, I
Ah,
could 3D print my own self-esteem.
you could do it, bro. I got you.
Yeah. You know what else I could do? Man, I think we should call this because like I'm dehydrated. I haven't had a drink in well over an hour. I've
Closing
been
thoughts.
sitting here. Yeah, closing thought. Well, play Wild Arms. Play Wild Arms. It's
Yeah,
a good
play
game.
Wild Arms, man. Wild Arms is a great ending to this. Play Wild Arms because it's on PS1. Emulate it and enjoy it.
Play Wild Arms on PS1, and then go back and play Wild Arms Alter Code F, which is the direct remake of Wild Arms for the PS1, but for the PS2. It's the exact same game, but with some different stuff.
What are you playing right now?
Wild Arms, the original.
There
Alter
you
Code
go.
F is full 3D. I mean, like it's remake territory
Man,
above
you're a
and beyond.
remake.
Man, you're a remake.
Man, get out of here with your remake nonsense.
7 out of 10.
Man, I
Not
think
enough.
games need
Not
better
enough
support.
hentai.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.